Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Fireworks in the Real World. This week we're going to look at some mood boarding. So the last couple of weeks we've done a bit of wireframing and we've sent those wireframes to our client. We may have sent them a video as well to talk through them and explain them, or we may have met them face to face if they were smaller and local. But whilst they're thinking about those and showing other people, of the stakeholders of the pet shop, maybe we're going to do a little bit of design steer work to get a general idea of where this, which kind of look and feel this pet shop is going to have. So we're going to do 3 very quick mood boards just to explore different directions. Ideally, a mood board should be something you can throw together in no time at all and not worry too much about any particular aspect of design. We're just trying to get moods, so we're kind of grabbing things from wherever we can find them, really. Could be magazines, could be websites, could be photographs, any kind of inspiration. We're going to do it digitally. You can do it on paper as well, which can give a better result because it's not tied down to digital components, which is where the web lives. It's nice sometimes to be able to provide a different context. So paper can be a solution, but we're not going to do that. We're going to use Fireworks just as a quick layout tool, and we'll start by looking at a few quick things we need to do before we do any kind of design work generally in Fireworks. Okay, so I'm going to go into the preferences. On a Mac it's the Fireworks menu preferences. Very similar on a PC from what I remember. Lots and lots of preferences in here. I'm not going to go through them all because that will take all day. A few important things. The default seems to be about 20 undo steps, which for me, I seem run out of 20. It says you can have up to 1009, which seems a bit of overkill. I'll set it at a couple of hundred. The more you use, I guess, the more memory or disk space it must be using somewhere or other to store it all. This one's quite intriguing. Now it defaults to bicubic best for smooth gradients. This is some kind of mathematical interpolation that's going on between colour changes. I don't know how that works, but I sometimes find, even though that says it's best, sometimes I find soft is a little bit better for subtle gradients, because Fireworks seems to be a little bit I don't know, it's not quite the same as other packages I've used. It kind of tapers off somehow, so it can be useful to fiddle about with the settings to try and get a better gradient on fades and things. So loads of other colour options for guidelines and default options. You can even change the colour of all your guides. Grid settings quite useful. Depending on the size of your design grid, it can be good to match the other grid in here. Now the grid is basically Fireworks kind of squared paper grid that you can use to line things up to your heart's content. Let's just turn that off. I don't want that at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to create a new document. Yeah, I've already done this. 1280 by 800 is the kind of size I use for mood boards. I tend to zoom out because that's quite big. You can see the entirety quite nicely on this particular screen. Some very useful screen shortcuts. Command or Control on a PC. 1 is 100%, 2 is 200%, 3 is 300%, 4 is 400%, and I think we go to 800% with 6, and you can do Control or Apple 8 as well. Or Control 0 fits it all nicely, and plus and minus. Control plus and Control minus zooms in and out quickly as well. But I often find 1 and 2 very useful, and 0. Okay, so I'm going to create 3 different pages. I'm going to do a happy mood board. I'm going to do a corporate mood board. I'm going to do a minimal mood board. As I say, not going to spend very long on these. Quite often, all I do, all I'm going to do for the purposes of this exercise is just search on Google. So I'm just literally going to look at random keywords, see what I find for images. Yeah, and that's the kind of happy cartoony idea I wanted, so literally just copy them out of there. You can paste them straight into Fireworks. Also, I quite often use a lot of screen grab tools. Jing is one I use quite often. There's also the default one on the Mac, which is Command Shift 3 and 4, which can be very useful. Although they save your screen grab to the desktop, so then you have to import it in. Things like Jing and Voila and Sketch, and there's loads of them. Put them on the clipboard, which can be useful for copying and pasting. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to build up all these images here with you. I'm going to just look at some colour palette stuff. So a site which is really useful, now owned by Adobe, is Cooler. Whether it was always owned by Adobe, I can't remember. But it's very useful for creating colour palettes, and it comes with lots of default sort of ideas, which you can search on and just use in your designs. There's also an extension which is quite useful. So if where's it gone? It's a window extension, Cooler. I think that's how it was pronounced. So that's extra nice because it will let you, as well as browsing all these lovely palettes of colours, it will let you do a search, and it will let you add the swatches to your colour swatch panel. So if I do that now, let's go to the swatch panel first. Let's go to Honey Pot, that kind of suits that kind of look. Let's add that to the swatches. There you go, you'll see that's now added those to the swatch panel, which is what you can use for quickly colouring. So I've drawn a rectangle, select it, and I can directly apply it from the swatch panel. You can, I think, do it straight from anything on the screen, of course, so you could just use the swatch panel of Cooler like that, but it's good to have them recorded in your own kind of colour palette. Now, talking of, let's just look at the colour palette in itself. Now you can clear that to start with. If you've got anything you want to save, it's good to save them, so I'm going to save my own swatch set for the pet shop in a minute. So I'm going to clear it first. Go back to Cooler. Let's have that happy. Where's it gone? Come back. Modern Living. I'll add that there. Add to swatches panel. And I can now save those swatches, which I've already done. I'll just overwrite it. There we go. So now I've got a colour palette just for this. Now it's also good to put that onto your mood board. Let's bring it back. Now whether there's a faster way of doing this, I don't know, but quite often what I do is I view the online version. There we go. It's gonna put it in nice and big. I then just do a colour grab, a screen grab. And Jing lets me capture it, copy it, switch back, paste it in. You could just create your own squares or circles or whatever and colour them in, but I find that a nice quick way to show a colour palette. So here are 3 quick mood boards. I've literally spent about 5 minutes on each, just grabbing things from various places, including my own kind of library of stuff that I quite like, which is where that one came from. So there's my happy mood board, got ideas of icons, idea about a font, kind of sketchy ideas, colour palette. Corporate, so different feel, you get the idea. It's a different kind of more photographic, more serious, bolder, cleaner, more magazine-y or corporate-y looking. Bit of texture. I've actually used Fireworks texture tool, so I've drawn a rectangle and used the texture tool, and Fireworks has got a whole bunch of really useful textures which you can apply subtly or otherwise, but they're really great repeating textures, and we'll look at those a bit more detail later on. But there's no subtlety to the texture I've chosen there. It's a good old kind of ginghamy checkerboard. There's another mood board, minimal one. So I've just grabbed a bit of a minimal website I found, some simple palette, some simple icons, cut out images, and a kind of moody, cool color palette from Cooler. Okay, so what I do quite often at that point is I just stick a title block on it, and I might write a little bit down here. Everything's quite. The idea of mood boards is they're kind of randomly laid out, so if these are a bit too linear, I might just kind of randomly rotate a few things so it looks a bit more a little bit less lined up. So just angle things round, so you're trying to get across these are just some random ideas. It's not a website by any means, it's just stuff. And quite often the little title block I'll put on every page, so I've just drawn a couple of rectangles. I've put those in a new folder, a new layer. I can now share that layer to the rest of the pages. So that's now on every page, so that's quite easy. So then I'll write some blurb. I quite often stick some little notes up here as well. I can't spell. And I'll do that in a kind of sketchy font. Yeah, so it looks like it's kind of hand drawn, if I can find one. I don't have any particular font that I use. I'll type in, what do I normally use? Some kind of brush script, there you go. So it's small enough that it doesn't really distract, but it can add a bit of helpful advice. Not advice, but it'll describe the elements on the page. Bold slab serif, bold navigation, that kind of thing, just to pinpoint the ideas that you've put together. Okay, so I can send those off to the client and talk him through and see what he or she thinks is the best way forwards. So next time we're going to look at working one of these up into a kind of more thought through design comp layout from combining our wireframes and our mood board, and kind of start thinking about creating a prototype. So more next week. Thank you very much.